Nightmare Zone has always been the best way to get your combats to 99, but recently Jagex released the Gemstone Crab, and just about everyone has started migrating to it. Is there any reason to go back to NMZ anymore? Is Nightmare Zone dead content? Let's find out today. Today we're going to look at what NMZ does well, where it lacks, and if there is still any use case going there moving forward. For context, back in 2019, I uploaded 3 videos on how to AFK all combat stats to 99 by only interacting with the game once every 20-ish minutes in Nightmare Zone, and these videos got a little over 1 million views. The method does still work, but should you actually go there, well, it does depend on your goals, your playstyle, and your account. Let's break this video down into a few key points. AFKness, or how long can I step away from the game and still make progress? Requirements. What quests do I need to do to complete this? Can I do this on a restricted account build? What levels do I need to start? Cost. How much money will I lose or gain with this method? Competition. Do I have to compete with other players in order to do this method? And XP rates. How much experience am I getting per hour relative to the other methods? I'll then rank everything on a 1 to 10 scale, with 10 being the best and 1 being the worst. Let's get into it. And of course, if you like this format of videos, remember to like, subscribe, and comment. It really does help. Let's start with AFKness and crabs. So rock crabs, sand crabs, ammonite crabs, they can all be AFK'd for 10 minutes straight. After 10 minutes, you'll need to leave the area, return to them to become aggressive again, and then the cycle repeats. Once you are in the spot you need to be, you just click once, come back in 10 minutes, and you can use the NPC aggression timer plugin to see how much time you have remaining before you need to reset the crab aggression. This plugin also shows you exactly how far away you need to run to reset them. So overall, I'll give them an 8 out of 10 for AFKness, with the only downside being that it's annoying to have to run back and forth every 10 minutes, and the aggression plugin's not available on mobile, so that's not going to work for other people. Next up is the Gemstone Crab. This was recently added to the game and is a direct reason why NMZ might not be worth going to anymore. The Gemstone Crab is simple. Click once, come back in 10 minutes. There is no running to reset. All you have to do is click on the cave entrance when it dies, and you'll basically teleport to the next spot. And then the cycle repeats. Best of all, there is no overkill, and overkill is when your max hit is higher than the monster's remaining health. So for example, you could have hit a 10 on the sand crab, but it only had 5 health left, so you hit a 5. It's effectively lost damage and therefore lost experience. The Gemstone Crab doesn't have this issue, as you can hit it non-stop for the full 10 minutes that it's active. This is awesome, but because of that, you do take a 12.5% XP penalty. This ultimately seems pretty fair and pretty balanced for the XP gain that you'll have by never having any downtime. Overall, I'm going to give this a 9 out of 10 for AFKness, with the only downside being that 12.5 XP reduction. Finally, Nightmare Zone. This is where it shines, and it's going to get a 10 out of 10. Here's why. For the sake of consistency, when I'm talking about Nightmare Zone in today's video, I'm referring to doing a customizable normal rumble, not a hard rumble. This is the topic that was in my 2019 NMZ videos, and it's the method that's most comparable to sand crabs and the Gemstone Crab. Regardless if you are using melee, ranged, or magic, NMZ allows you to fully AFK for 20 minutes straight. Nothing else compares, except like splashing on a seagull or something. Also, even though your character stops attacking back after 20 minutes, you won't log out until you either A, die, or B, get physically X'd out of the game and close it. Back when I was maxing my main's account combat stats, there were times where I would forget or get busy and I would accidentally AFK for 30 or 40 minutes straight. But because monsters are so weak and you have 1,000 absorption potions, I would almost never die. Yeah, I'm not really getting experience for those 20 minutes since I wasn't attacking back, but the beauty is I didn't log out. And because I didn't log out, I didn't have to log back in. And if you remember those videos from 2019, I suggest using a remote desktop app from your phone so you could stay logged in from your PC even if you were not at home. This is effectively how I maxed while being at work. So the summary of those videos is that you start a customizable normal rumble with the Trapped Soul, Count Draenor, Sand Snake, King Roald, and the Kendall. You go in with 21 absorptions, 6 combat potions, and a rock cake or a locator orb. You start the minigame, stand in the center, drink 1,000 absorptions, lower your health to 1 with a rock cake, and then take a dose of combat potion. And that's it. Come back every 15-20 minutes, repot, repeat, and the cycle goes on. And you also lower your health down to 1 every 20 minutes as well. By doing this, you can effectively interact with the game once every 20 minutes, and you can survive in NMZ for up to 6 hours straight. All of this to say, for AFKness, I'm going to give this a 10 out of 10. Nothing in the game is as AFKable as running a customizable normal rumble in Nightmare Zone. Alright, let's move on to point number 2, requirements. Rock crabs and sand crabs have no requirements. Just go to their location in Relica, Zaya, or the Isle of Souls. You can fight as few as 1 or as many as 4. The Isle of Souls and Waterbirth Island have single combat crab spots too, so if you're low defense and want to avoid taking a whole bunch of damage, you can do that. There are also several 4 crab spots on Zaya, Varlamore if you want to have as much experience gained as possible. For Ammonite Crabs, there are a few requirements, as you need to do Bone Voyage, the Dig Site, and a handful of smaller quests to get that 100 kudos to start it, but you can effectively stay at Sand Crabs all the way to 99 if you really wanted to. However, if you have low defense, crabs will hit you over time, especially if there are 2 or 3 attacking you at all times, and at some point, you'll have to heal. If you are making a pure, this does get a little annoying having to rebank periodically for food and risking losing your spot, but since the requirements are, incredibly low, I'm going to go ahead and give this a 9 out of 10. Alright, moving on to the Gemstone Crab. The only requirement is a quick 5-minute quest in Varrock that allows you to get into Varlamore. Also, you should probably do Twilight's Promise, which is another quick quest that gives you access to that Quetzal transportation system. You can always just walk there through West Varlamore and get to the Gemstone Crab, but I found it was pretty annoying whenever I needed to buy something from the Grand Exchange, or if I needed to do like a birdhouse run, or leave and help a friend with something. I'm looking at you, Michael, making me buy your 15,000 rune arrows from Palnovich. Thanks. The Gemstone Crab only attacks directly in front of it, so if you're maging or raging, you won't take any damage if you keep your distance. Even for melee, if the crab turns and attacks away from you, you still won't take damage. And even better, it's only 1 crab ever hitting you, so you don't have to worry about taking multiple hits from multiple crabs if your stats aren't that high. This right here has made me rebond several of my pures to go ahead and finish them. Not taking any damage and not having to rebank has made this the best way to AFK on a pure, and I don't think anything comes even remotely close to this anymore. So I'm going to rank Gemstone Crab as a 10 out of 10 on requirements. Yes, you do have to do the 5-minute quest to unlock Varlamore, and yeah, you should probably do the 15 minutes for Twilight's Promise so you have a faster way to get there, but because there are 0 gear requirements, 0 stat requirements, and no requirements to ever rebank, it gets a 10 out of 10, and I think that's well deserved. Nightmare Zone. This one does have some requirements. You guys probably already knew that. You basically have to use the 5 bosses that I listed, and they have a fair few amount of quests and skill requirements for them. For quests, you need Vampire Slayer, Mountain Daughter, X Marks the Spot, Client of Corinne, The Ascent of Arceus, The Depths of Despair, Rune Mysteries, What Lies Below. Now, all these can be done in like a weekend, but still, I mean, that's some quest requirements. And they come with their own skill requirements as well, like 35 rune crafting, 20 agility, 12 Hunter, and what sucks for Pures is that What Lies Below does give defense experience, so Pures can't even really use this method. You also need to have decently good gear, and probably at least base 70s in your combat stats to really start taking the full advantage of the 20-minute AFK for the whole 6 hours. It's still the best place to AFK, but you have to put some time in if you want to utilize NMZ and take its full advantage. Also, you really can't do this on a Pure at all, because you'll burn through absorption potions, even if you didn't have to do What Lies Below, and you can't even really survive for 20 minutes as a Pure. Now, on 40 defense accounts, you can survive the 20 minutes of AFKing, but you probably won't last the full 6 hours. So with all that in mind, for requirements, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. All right, let's move on to cost. So crabs, no loot, no cost, nothing of importance. I guess you can get fossils from Ammonite Crabs for extra experience, and you can pay the 10k gold to get to Crabclaw Island on Zaya for less competition, but other than that, there are no upfront costs or rewards. You can use any gear you'd like, but there's also no profitability. Either way, 9 out of 10. The Gemstone Crab, again, no cost at all, just gotta get there. If you're one of the top 16 damage dealers, you do get the chance to mine the gems at the end, but it comes in at about 15k GP per hour, and that's basically nothing. And also in many cases, if you're there training, you probably won't get it anyway because the top 16 guys are, in max gear and you're probably not. Otherwise, basically the same as crabs. I'll give this one a 9 out of 10. Nightmare Zone. All right, remember, normal rumbles is what we're talking about. It costs 22,000 gold to start the event, and if you die or disconnect, you need to repay that 22,000 again. You barely break even on your absorption costs, so you won't be able to buy herb boxes doing this method. You will also need to do a hard rumble first in order to get your absorption potions, which will cost you some prayer potions just to get there. And you'll also have to put in some money into some good gear, probably around 10 mil for the obsidian setup. Although the other crab methods would benefit from good gear as well, it isn't strictly required like it is for the NMZ method. And then best case scenario, you're still only required to pay 22k an hour, and you can always sell back your gear later. So, well, let's move on. I'll give this one a 6 out of 10. Competition. All right, standard crabs, they fall victim to this one hard. Maybe with the change of the Gemstone Crab being released, something will change with this, but historically it's been very hard to find a 3-spot Ammonite Crab world or a 4-spot Sand Crab world. There's also a lot of bots training there that you have to compete with. Overall, this is generally not a fun experience. If you ever need to rebank or do a farm run or whatever, you're losing that spot 99 times out of 100. And you might need to hop through pretty much every world world just to get a new spot. If you have high combat stats, you also need those high volume crab spots just to make the XP gain be worth it. Overall, this entire experience is a 5 out of 10 for me, especially if you need the higher volume spots. Moving on to Gemstone Crab, it's unique in its way that it doesn't actually have a health pool and everyone can attack it. There are no downsides to being in a more populated world unless you're trying to get the 15k per hour from mining gems, which is probably not worth it. Other than that, though, no competition. I'm giving it a 9 out of 10 just because the gem mining factor. And Nightmare Zone. Nightmare Zone is perfect. You start the minigame by yourself, you go into an instance area, there's no one to compete with, it's just you. So 10 out of 10. All right, finally, let's talk about XP rates. Crabs are good, but finding a world sucks. And if you have to spend time hopping around worlds to find a spot, that's effectively time you're not gaining XP. If you have relatively high stats, you need those 3 or 4 crab spots just to get the most XP without any downtime between kills. Overall, 7 out of 10 for XP. Gemstone Crab, no overkill, no defenses, but there is that 12.5% XP reduction. Since the reduction is just to counteract the lack of overkill, it balances itself out pretty well, and I feel confident giving it a 9 out of 10. And for NMZ normal rumbles, they are good XP, but everything has low hit points and low defense, which can lower your XP rates because you're constantly overkilling things. The XP here is still very good, and because of that, I'll give it an 8 out of 10. All right, let's put everything together and then we'll talk about best use cases for each thing. For regular crabs, nowadays, there isn't a whole lot of a reason to even use them anymore. Gemstone Crab and Nightmare Zone are far better for AFKing. The Gemstone Crab has basically the same upfront costs and requirements, and both NMZ and Gem Crab have virtually zero competition compared to potentially hopping worlds forever and ever trying to find an open crab spot. And worst of all, if you leave, you'll probably lose your spot anyway, and that's no fun. So crabs get a 38 out of a potential 50 with no real reason to do them these days unless you want fossils from Ammonite Crabs for whatever reason. Maybe you're an Iron Man, free herblore experience. And for the Gemstone Crab, this one's gonna take the cake. It's easier to AFK than regular crabs. It's still a 10-minute AFK. You never have to compete for spots. You never have to hop worlds to find one, and there's no upfront costs. You can also fight it on a pure without ever having to rebank, and although you should do Twilight's Promise for the teleport to get there, you can always run there the first time and then use one of the local banks in West Varlamore, but if you leave, you'll have to run all the way back again. Gemstone Crab gets a very high and well-deserved 46 out of 50 total score. Wrapping up with the Nightmare Zone customizable rumbles. I keep saying that because I don't want to answer the comments when people inevitably forget. This offers the longest AFK and the least amount of effort for experience, but it does fall short on gear requirements, stat requirements, and quest requirements. Basically, if you aren't a main with base 70s and some decent gear, this method really isn't for you. If you are a main with some extra cash, I would still highly recommend going here if you need the most AFKable experience for the most gains. Total score, 40 out of 50. Alrighty, let's talk about use case and best reasons to use each thing, given your account, your status, your scenario, whatever. So for crabs, you get fossils from ammonites, I guess. Yeah, if you're not filling out the museum and you don't need Numalite, then there's really no reason to do crabs anymore. For NMZ normal rumbles, if you need a 20-minute AFK with a little bit of wiggle room because maybe you're at work and you're remote desktoping in, then yeah, these are perfect. It is nice. This has changed a little bit, and I didn't bring this up. This has changed with the addition of the Jagex launcher. That was not a thing back when I made the original video, and now you can just one-click log in. But it used to be really annoying if you got logged out because you'd have to, like, from your phone, retype in your, 25 character password just to be able to get back in, and that was kind of a pain in the ass. But these days, yeah, you just kind of one-click log in and call it a day. Either way, NMZ normal rumble, perfect if you need that 20 minutes or more, and you have relatively high defense level to take advantage of the method in its entirety. Also, if you're a low-level or mid-level Iron Man, the 22k does add up kind of fast, so that is definitely something to consider. This method might be geared more towards mains or, I guess, irons with, like, a little bit more spending cash. 22k doesn't seem like that much until you're burning it over and over and over again and you keep logging out or whatever, then it starts to add up pretty fast. And finally, the Gemstone Crab. Pretty much for every other use case scenario, the Gem Crab is the best choice. If you can click 3 or 4 times, just once every 10 minutes, you can go here with any stats, with any gear, at any time, without having to hop around looking for a world, and the 12% decreased XP is offset by the lack of having any overkill from any of the other methods. If you can train here, I would. If you don't need a full 20 minutes, this is the place to go. Alright, that's pretty much all I got for you guys today, so if you think that Nightmare Zone is something that you want to try, and you only got like the high-level overview from this, but you've never really done it before, I'll put a video on screen. You guys can go ahead and check out either the old guide, or maybe I'll make a new guide. Either either way, a guide of some sort will be in the corner right now. Go ahead and click on that. But if you enjoyed the video, like I said earlier, a thumbs up and a comment help out a lot. Subscribe if you want more of this, and if you leave a comment asking for another kind of breakdown, I'd be more than happy to make another video like this. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it. I'll see you next time.